Hello everyone, my name is Yvette Hoitink and I'm going to give a presentation about patterns of immigration from the Achterhoek. I'm sorry I can't be there in person and I would really like to thank the programming committee for allowing me to give this presentation in this manner. I work at the Nationaal Archief, the National Archives of the Netherlands, as a consultant digital innovation. I'm not here to talk about my job, however, I'm here to talk about my own personal research. I've been doing genealogy since I was 14 and my ancestors come from the area of Winterswijk. It's a small town in the east of the Achterhoek. That's the eastern part of Gelderland in the Netherlands. First I started with just researching my own ancestors, but soon I discovered that you can't research families in isolation. To understand the family history, you have to know what happened to the village and the people around them. So instead of focusing on my own ancestors, it soon started to become a population reconstruction from the entire area. That's the area of the former manor of Bredevoort, which includes the villages of Aalten, Bredevoort, Dinxperlo and Winterswijk. In the course of my research I came across several ancestors who had siblings who emigrated to the United States. And since 1993 I've been researching those people. There are about 4,500 immigrants that I've located so far who left the area between 1840 and 1920. My goal is to find out what happened to them, where they settled, whom they married, who their children were, etc. So far I've been able to locate 2,700 of those in US records. For example, census records or cemetery records or other local church records. And there are about 1,800 people still unaccounted for. This is a chart of the population of Bredevoort in the 19th century. And you can see that up until the 1840s the population is rising. And then there's a dip or it just levels off. That's because of all the immigrants that are leaving. So around 1840 there were approximately 16,000 people living there, and it would take until 1880 to reach that same level of population. And in between those dates over 4,000 people left the area. So if you imagine that those people hadn't left, the population increase would have continued. To give you an idea of what these people did, who these immigrants were and where they settled, I'm going to take just 1 year and tell you about the people born in that year. I've chosen the village of Winterswijk because that's where I've done most of my research, but the same story and patterns would emerge if I would focus on Aalten, Bredevoort or Dinxperlo. As you can see, in 1839 Winterswijk was just a small town with 4 main streets where all the houses were located. In 1839 270 people were born in Winterswijk. So to give you an idea of how many people this is, I've created this infographic where each figure shows one person. There were 140 boys and 130 girls. And what I'm now going to do is show you what happened to them as the years went by. So in 1839, the year they were born, 11 of the children died already. So they died either within a couple of days or a couple of months from being born. I'm going to switch to the next year and the next year and the next year. So each year you can see children that died in the Netherlands. So at the age of 1 already a lot of the children, 38 children, were dead. And as we continue we can see that a lot of children die in infancy. At the age of 5 we see 2 red children appear. Those figures represent the children who are emigrating, in this case together with their parents. So in 1845, if we compare to 1843, we see there's 1 child dying and 2 children emigrating. Those 2 children went with their parents and they settled in Clymer, New York. As we continue we'll see that more and more people are emigrating and some children are dying. We're now in 1847. 3 of those children that emigrated in that year unfortunately ended up on the Phoenix, a ship that went down on Lake Michigan just off the shore of Sheboygan. They perished with their parents and along with over 200 other people from the east part of the Netherlands. 1848, 1849, 1850s. So we see that immigration slows down and the deaths slow down as well. In the middle of the 1850s, immigration picks up again, and several children leave as teenagers and young adults. In 1858 there's another jump, and this is because at this time you could sail for free to South America. In Brazil, slavery was being abolished, and people were trying to get farmers from Europe to come there, so they would pay all the expenses of the travel and you would reimburse them by making money on your new land. And several people from Winterswijk took up this opportunity and went there, although they didn't realize how bad the situation was. So we're now getting into the early 20s. The death toll rises again. That's because several of the children are now young women, and they are starting to have children and dying in childbirth. And also we see a lack of immigration, and that is because, of course, there's a civil war going on in the United States, which prevents a lot of people from emigrating. But then the year is 1865. That's the year that the Civil War ends. I've read this letter by Peter Lancaster from Milwaukee, who writes to his family, and he mentioned 3 important facts. Number 3, the American president Abraham Lincoln was shot. Number 2, the Civil War has ended. And number 1, one of his daughters was married to a man from Winterswijk, and in fact it's the brother of one of those people that we're now looking at, who emigrated from the birth year 1839. 1866, so I'll just let it go on. 1870s are now arriving, and we'll see that people are moving further westwards. The people who are leaving in this year emigrate to Nebraska, to Montana, and further west. And more people are dying again. So we're now continuing to the year 1883. This is the year when the last of those people born in 1839 emigrated. It's Wilhelmina Gesina Vonhoff, and she was actually a niece of an ancestor of mine, Johanna Vonhoff. And she went to Clymer, New York again. So it's kind of a full circle moment that the first immigrant from this group and the last both ended up in Clymer. And then I'll just move along the rest of the animation so you can see at what ages those people died. So they are now in their 60s, and they're not moving to the US anymore. So in their 70s more and more people die each year, and then by the time they're 80 most of them have died already. And the last one I know of died in Winterswijk in 1930. So we'll see that there are still 10 grey people, and those are people that I don't know what happened to them, if they emigrated or if they died in the Netherlands. So out of the 270 children born, we see that 1 in 4 died in Winterswijk before the age of 18. In total 3 in 4 died in the Netherlands without emigrating, so most of them in Winterswijk, some in neighboring municipalities, and a few moved away from the area altogether but didn't stay in Winterswijk. There were 10 people that I couldn't find in the death records in the Netherlands, or in immigration lists, or in census records in the US. Many of those were Catholic, and I assume that they went to Germany because a lot of the Catholic families had relatives over there. But since I haven't found them, I can't draw any definite conclusions. Of the 64 people that emigrated, I think that's really a lot if you consider that's 1 in 4 of every child born in 1839, or 1 in 3 of the group who lived past 18. Can you imagine the group that you graduated high school with, that 1 in 3 of them would leave? I mean, It's mind-boggling numbers. Of those 64, I found 55 in the emigration lists in Winterswijk. So they were the people who registered their departure with the authorities. But because I was trying to find out what happened to each and every one of those 270 people, I found 9 more in US records, especially the census records. I found several. I don't know if this holds true in general, but 1 in 6 in this group did not report their departure. So probably there are many more people in other years as well who did not report their departure. So I think it's safe to say that probably around 10% or so should be added to the emigration lists. 3 of those children died on the Phoenix in 1847. At least 5 fought in the Civil War. At least 2 of them died during, were killed in action. And then there are 18 immigrants who weren't the first in their family to leave. So we know where they ended up, and we know where their earlier emigrating relatives ended up. So then you can start to see whether they would go to a new place or go where they already know people. And there were only 18 people in this group for whom I've been able to establish both where they went and where their earlier relatives went. And 12 of them settled with their relatives. So that would, for this group, that's 2 in 3 that settled in the place where they already knew people. But we have to remember that many of these children were early immigrants. The 1840s was just when the immigration wave was starting. So many of them were the first in their families to leave together with their parents and siblings. As an indicator of how the families usually stay together, I put it in a small ad from the Nieuwsbode, which asked the whereabouts of A.M. Schoenmaker, who is the father of one of those children who were born in 1839. So they left from Winterswijk, and their nephew Schoenmaker in St. Louis, Missouri, wonders where they ended up. So I don't know if they ever were reunited or not.